Hello and welcome to this channel of Liberation. And here we are with our discussion on 10 Indian languages and how they came to be with author Karthik Venkatesh. Karthik Venkatesh is a very interesting person. He has been, although education-wise he finished his MBA, might be having some interesting plans in his life, but then something stumbled upon and he got into education sector where he started working with schools. He had his own school, if I'm not wrong. He ran a school for some time. He taught English and history. Quite an interesting combination, though. He born and brought up in Bangalore. Could speak multiple languages. Started working for Penguin Publishers, where he became an editor. Started editing books for adults, and when it came to his turn to write a book, he decided to pick something related to children actually. He wrote a very beautiful book, a very simple book, 10 Indian languages and how they came to be. And this is published by the Duckbill imprint of Penguin, which essentially targets towards a younger audience. The book is written in such a beautiful manner that adults, children, everybody will enjoy the content. So, without wasting too much time, I'll first welcome Karthik on stage. Karthik, welcome. Thanks
Hello,
for
nice
joining.
to be here.
Thanks,
Thank you
thanks
for
for
having
joining.
me.
I have so many questions for you. We have been interacting for we have known each other actually for a long time over social media, uh, but we have been talking for some time now, and I realized that there is lot more to Karthik than what you can read in any profile that you find online or these kind of sessions that he has given interviews to so many people like me. So what I am going to do today is, Karthik, I'm going to ask you some questions which are from the book and some beyond the book. For example, I'm really curious that you have been an editor for a large part of your life and your work has been appreciated because when I was talking to Penguin publishers, they were like, hi, Karthik is an amazing guy and they were all gaga about your work. So how come writing, दूसरों की गलतियां निकालते निकालते खुद लिखने पे आ गए? What prompted you for that?
No, there is I think, a writer inside every editor waiting to come out. But because the nature of our job, editing, is such that we write for other people, we
Right.
work with other people on their writing. We never get around to working on our own writing. Our need to write is satisfied by working with other people. But at some point, sometimes some editors also make that leap from being only editors to also writing, and there are plenty of people who have done that. One in editor I can think of who is known really as a writer is Girish Karnad. So Girish
Ah,
Karnad was
right.
an editor with Oxford University Press for many years, and he edited a number of very interesting books there. But then he is primarily known today as a writer, and also as an actor. But yeah, he's a Gyanpith awardee. He's a writer. So editors sometimes become writers, and that's how my journey has begun.
Very beautiful. And when you started your journey, then the first subject that you picked is languages. So why languages?
That's actually a very interesting question. So a few years ago, I always wanted to write a little bit for newspapers and magazines and so on. So I would occasionally write articles, on history, on literature, and so on. And I wrote one article on a language, on an unknown language, and I got a lot of feedback for that particular article, far more than I had got for any of my articles, that I had previously written. So I realized that people have this interest in reading about languages. See, India is the land of 1,000 languages, and many people in India speak one, two, three, four, five, six languages very, very automatically without having to work very hard to learn those languages. So, in that situation, people are curious about the languages around them. People are curious about the languages of places far away from their own. So I realized that there was this huge interest in language, Everyone wanted to read about languages. And when I thought of writing my own book, I thought this perhaps is the area of interest, that I personally am interested in. I think a lot of people are also interested
I'm
in.
sure. How many languages can you speak?
I speak about six languages, apart from Hindi and English, which is not difficult. I mean, in India, if you go to school, you learn English, of course. Hindi is also learned. I also know Kannada because I have grown up in Bangalore. I know Tamil and Malayalam, which are both my mother tongues. And I also can read and write Punjabi and speak
And you
Punjabi.
you are also married to a Punjabi person.
I'm married to
Uh,
a Punjabi. I lived in Punjab for some years. So thanks
you
to
have
all that, I can also
right?
read
You
and
taught in
speak.
Punjab.
Sorry?
You've taught in Punjab. You lived in Punjab.
I've
You
taught
had a
in Punjab. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, okay, Karthik, tell me, this is something that was one big problem for me because I have written two books which are again titled Top 10. And one is on Baulis, one is on Forts of Delhi. And picking up 10 Baulis out of 50, picking up 10 forts out of 12, 14 was not easy for me. You
Right.
had 1,000 options. How did you pick these 10 languages?
Yeah, that was actually the most difficult part of my uh, whole journey of writing the book. Now, the series was 10, 10 Indian languages, 10 Indian tribes, and so on. So I had to work within the boundaries of that series. I had to choose
Yeah,
only 10 languages. So how
right.
I went about it is this way, and perhaps we can discuss a little more in detail later. India has basically four big language families, and there is
Mhm.
a fifth language family, somewhat smaller, which has just been identified about 10 or 20 years ago. So these
Mhm.
four big language families are the Indo-Aryan languages, the Dravidian languages, the Sino-Tibetan languages, and the Austro-Asiatic languages.
Mhm.
The Indo-Aryan language family is the biggest. And
Mhm.
simply because of that, I chose three languages from this family. The Dravidian language family is the second biggest. And I chose three languages from this family. And then both from Sino-Tibetan and Austro-Asiatic, I chose two languages each. The language family that I left out was the Andamanese language family, which has only been discovered about 20 years ago. So that was the one that I did not include in my list of languages. So that's how I tried to make my selection. But even within these language families, I had to choose. The Dravidian language
Yeah,
family consists of about 30 languages. The
right.
Indo-Aryan language family consists of about 75 to 100 languages. So even there, I had to choose with some kind of criterion. So I tried to choose languages that had interesting stories, but all languages have interesting stories. So I chose the languages based on their awareness of people of the language. I had to mix languages that were very well known. You had to tell the story of the well known languages, but at the same time, you also had to include languages that were not so well known, so that people would learn something new. So I tried to mix all that up, the familiar and the unfamiliar. And that's how I finally came up with my list of 10.
Right. You mentioned language families, and I'm sure we have so many students who probably already watching this or maybe will watch this uh, session later, uh, and they don't understand what a language family is. So you might want to elaborate on the term language family.
Sure. So, a language family essentially is a group of languages which have a lot of things in common. The things in common could be their grammar, their words, maybe they have a common ancestor, right? Just to give you a good example, the Indo Aryan language family, consisting
Mhm.
of languages like Hindi, Punjabi, Marathi, Gujarati, Assamese, Bengali, Odia, and many, many others, they all have a common ancestor, which is Sanskrit. They all go back to Sanskrit, and they have in some way descended from Sanskrit. So because of that common origin, they have many things in common. And you would notice it. Words in these languages are often similar,
Right.
expressions are often similar, the numbering systems are often similar. So that essentially constitutes a language family. Similarly with the Dravidian language family and the others as well.
If I am remembering correctly, I read somewhere in your book only that there is this one language from South India, language family which is widely in South India, but there is one language which is spoken in Pakistan also,
Yeah.
connected to South
South
India.
Indian. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that is
So
one
what's
of the
that?
languages in my book. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
Dravidian language family is basically a South Indian language family.
Yep.
Almost all the languages are in South India. There are a few in Central India and a few in Eastern India. But there is
Okay.
one language, which is a Dravidian language, which is
Uh-huh.
spoken far, far away from South India, which is spoken in Balochistan, which is in Pakistan, sharing a border with Iran. And this interesting language is called Brahui. And it's
Brahui.
spoken by almost 2 million people. That's about 20 lakh people in that region. And very early on, almost 200 years ago, the Britishers, when they explored that area and they heard the people speaking that language, they realized this language was very different from the other languages that they'd heard, in the surrounding areas. And eventually they researched what was this language about, and
That's
finally it
quite
was found that
interesting.
this language
Hmm.
is connected to Dravidian languages. Sorry, you asked a question.
Interesting. You know,
How this Dravidian language
I think
came
this is
to.
quite interesting to know. Um, I have a few friends who are very much interested in languages. So I think, guys, we have lost Karthik. There's some signal connection. Anyways, he'll be back soon. Not a problem. So I was saying that I have a few friends, some from Bangalore only, and we discuss a lot over languages because I have learned that most of the South Indians they know at least the they can at least converse with each other all four major South Indian languages. Often people don't mention Dakhni. I was glad when you have prepared a list in your book. Also, it's mentioned that you can speak Dakhni. People say, okay, we can speak Telugu, but within the Telugu speaking region, there is this, and not just Telugu speaking region, it spreads into Karnataka also. That whole Dakhni type is a different world altogether, which is quite interesting. Some roots with the North India also. So I play this interesting thing with my friends where whenever we meet, I bring in words from the languages that I know. I can speak 4 5 languages, they can speak 4 5 languages, and then we try to compare. And it sometimes becomes so interesting. There are words which are totally opposite when you move from Punjabi to Tamil or to Telugu. The meaning completely changes. Something as in fact, there has been a very very popular joke in Tamil and Punjabi that a Tamil asks a Punjabi, Tamil Perima. Now, what he was saying was, you know Tamil, but in the case of Punjabi, you can never say Perima because
Very
in Punjab it becomes totally different.
totally,
And
yeah.
uh, and not just that, there are so many words which we use in our common language, common day-to-day life, which change meaning over period of time, which change meaning with region also. For
Yeah.
example, one of the most common words that we as Punjabis use at our home is like I live at first floor, my parents live at ground floor. So it's very very normal for us to say, "अच्छा कोठे पे चले जाओ." Kotha means upper floor or roof,
Mhm. The
and
terrace,
it's
huh?
something very normal. The terrace. However, with time, especially in the region of Delhi and below Delhi, the word kotha somehow got translated to brothel. Now there is deep history to it, how it actually happened. You know, there were performance centers above that. After 1857, British came, whatever they did, and then meaning slowly started changing. But a language transforms and language transforms to greater extent. I'm sure while you were doing your research, you must have found several elements which would have surprised you also that this is something that I have thought all my life. This is how it is. But now when I'm reading it, it turned out to be something totally different.
Hmm.
You have any such incident that comes to your mind? Would you like to
Right.
share?
No, see, one of the things that Dravidian languages are very proud of is the fact that Dravidian languages have a very different origin. They are not derived from Sanskrit, right? But at the same time, what nobody can deny is that there are many words of Sanskrit origin in all the Dravidian languages, right? And that is undeniable. And actually, the extent of Sanskrit vocabulary in this South Indian languages is immense, and that shows the great influence that, in a way, Sanskrit has had in on India. On both Indo-Aryan and Dravidian languages in particular. So much so that Malayalam and Telugu, which are both Dravidian languages with Dravidian grammar, they go back to Sanskrit sometimes to coin new words. And linguists say every Sanskrit word is potentially a Malayalam word or a Telugu word. You know, you can modify that word a little bit and use it in Malayalam or use it in Telugu. Kannada and Tamil are a little different. They are a little more careful about the kind of words, the new words that they create. But Telugu and Malayalam, which are at opposite ends of southern India, have a great Sanskrit influence in their vocabulary, not in their grammar. And that is one of the surprising things that I found. Even Tamil, which is a very, very hardcore Dravidian language, also has a lot of Sanskrit words. But the opposite is also true, right? Even if you go as far back as the Rig Veda, there are Dravidian words in Sanskrit as well, right? One interesting word that is a Sanskrit word is the word for peacock, which is Mayur, right?
Mayur.
But Mayur comes from Tamil, which is Mayil, right? So here is a Sanskrit word that actually was derived from a Dravidian word, right? So this interaction between languages, is a very, very old thing. Like I said, it goes back to the time of the Rig Veda. And there are even 2-3 Indic words in the Hebrew Bible as well, because people were interacting in even those days. So what can I say? This exchange of words, vocabularies between people is hundreds, thousands of years old, and it shows how deeply connected all of humanity is. We are divided into nations. There are borders, there are guards on those borders, there are fences, but languages travel beyond all of that.
Wow. You know what? Now I have got another curious question. Now, you have in your family, you have a non-human family member also, your dog. So, do you think animals also have a language? I'm just curious.
Yeah. No, I see. Animals definitely have a way of communication, right?
Right?
They know how to communicate with humans, and of course, they can also communicate with each other. My dog, when she's hungry, she will come, she will sit next to me and look at me straight in the eyes, saying, I am hungry, feed me. She doesn't say anything, she doesn't bark, she doesn't do a thing. She just looks at me into my eyes. And I look at the time and I understand, oh, acha, she wants to be fed. So, very simple way of communicating with me. And, that's one thing I have noticed. And there are other things as well, So, yes, animals do have some kind of language. I think animals like chimpanzees and gorillas, because they are primates very close to humans in a genetic sense, I think their language faculties are even more developed in some way.
Because I also feel that humans probably also started just the way animals do. We communicate with each other. We can express the way animals express. Maybe humans also started like that, and eventually humans developed their way of communication to a level where we have got universities set up who only study that way of communication now, and we are talking written books and books over it. Uh, but if you get an opportunity to rewrite this book or maybe add another chapter to it, what languages would you like to bring in?
I would definitely like to include Bengali. I would perhaps like to include, Malayalam and Gujarati. So these are some languages that I seriously considered, but which I left out simply because, there wasn't space for so many languages.
Uh,
And these languages all have very, very interesting histories of their own.
I'm sure. And acha, by the way, is there any story that you would like to share from these languages which are all because people can pick your book. In fact, we have already shared the link to this book in the comment section. People can go to Amazon and get your book. The languages that they cannot find in this book. Is there any story that you would like to share that comes to your mind? Something about the languages that are not here.
About the languages. Yeah, there is one interesting fact I would like to share. It's not a story as such. I was just
Huh?
telling you I would like to add Gujarati to the list, right? Uh, so Gujarati is of course, a language spoken in the state of Gujarat. It's spoken by many millions of people and so on and so forth. One of the things that many people don't know about is one of the people who contributed to the development of Gujarati. The development of Gujarati as a modern Indian language was Mahatma Gandhi. So
Huh?
Gandhi wrote his autobiography originally in Gujarati, right? And he
Oh,
also used to write regularly in Gujarati for the newspapers that he ran. And in the process of actually writing essays and articles, etc., in Gujarati, he developed the language. So Gujarati had a very different kind of vocabulary. It was more suited for stories from the epics, historical stories, etc. But when Gandhi was writing, he was writing about political issues. He was writing about social issues. So he developed a style and he developed a vocabulary for Gujarati to write about these issues. And that is one
wow.
of the things that we don't know about Gandhi. He actually contributed to the development of his mother tongue in very
Wow.
fundamental ways.
That's interesting. Even I was not aware of that. My interesting brush with Gujarati was many years ago. I was uh, doing some project for Ahmedabad University, and on one of the days I just went to Sarkez Rosa, and I had this big DSLR camera that I was carrying, and I was clicking pictures inside the shrine. The monuments around the shrine. There was one of the tombs that I was inside. Beautiful structure. I was just standing there taking some of the pictures. Old man walks up to me and says, "Photo pado." Now, pado in Punjabi means pad dena.
Hmm.
But I had no idea what it means in Gujarati. So I thought that he's telling me that here of this photograph, you are not allowed to take photographs inside because I was actually standing next to a grave. And there are many places where you are not allowed to take pictures inside a
Sure.
Muslim shrine. So I was like, okay, maybe he's telling me fear of this picture and you're not allowed to do this here. So I said, okay, this is a digital camera. I'm trying to explain him in my way. The digital camera, there is no tearing of the picture. I can delete it if you want. I'm sorry. The moment I started showing him, no, 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 paro, paro. मैं नहीं फाड़ सकता photo. Later, Oxygen tells me photo pado, matlab he's telling you take picture. He's giving you permission. He's telling you go further up. You can go closer to the grave. Don't be shy because I was skeptical. I was standing at one corner and I was doing all my business over there. So sometimes language can be really funny. But what's more interesting that the story that I would like to share is someone in Pal in Manipur told me something very beautiful. You also have a chapter on Manipuri language. Now, this incident, so what happens is I work with schools, I work with teachers, or when I was speaking with, interacting with the teachers, and this is something that I do at most of the sessions that I conduct, I ask them how do they greet each other in their native language because I personally feel, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this whole good morning, Suprabhat, this is something more European. In India, we have always loved our own Sat Sri Akal, Radhe Radhe, Jai Shri Ram, Vanakkam, and each one has Namaste, Namaskar, each one has its own meaning, own depth. We are either greeting other person, we are giving value to other person, or we are remembering God. So in Manipur, when I asked this in my Impal session, one of the teachers was from some hill tribe, and she said that I come from the hills, and in our hills we have a local greeting that we often use. The greeting translates to "Have your children eaten today?" Now that was something that actually stayed with me because it was quite powerful. In
Very powerful.
Punjabi also, yeah, in some villages we often say "Horji wal kidna horji, raji baji." Well, the place from where you come is everything okay over there? And
Hmm.
in this case, those who are parents, they would understand how powerful it is. Uh, have your children eaten today? So when you're traveling, you often get to see some interesting elements of different languages. There is one language which has been in political limelight for, I think, 75 years, I would say now. It, some people say it started after independence. Some people say no, it is the language of India, and I'm talking about Hindi right now. So Hindi has become a big controversy between different linguists, with different political groups. People say that we don't understand what is Hindi. You have a full chapter on Hindi. You and very clearly you mentioned that. Let me just open that page. So I love when you say language with an attitude. That's a language with an attitude. What is Hindi? How do you define Hindi? And why is so much politics going on after Hindi?
I mean, I think a lot of the politics around Hindi is essentially because when we fought against the British during the freedom struggle, right? We also, in some sense, needed a language that was common to all India, and that language couldn't be English in the minds of the national leaders. Then English was a European language. English was the language of the colonizer. English was not an Indian language. And then which other Indian language could therefore become a common language? That was a big question, right? Hindi was spoken by a large number of people, all largely in North India. And so, in some sense, Hindi was promoted as, a language that could become the common language of all of India. And even someone like Mahatma Gandhi put his weight behind Hindi. In 1918, he founded the Dakshin Bharat Hindi Prachar Sabha, to teach Hindi to South Indians. And,
You mentioned 80. Karthik, you just said 1980.
18,
18, 1 8. Okay, sorry.
18,
I
yeah. In
made
1918,
1
Mahatma
8.
Gandhi founded the Dakshin Bharat Hindi Prachar Sabha to teach Hindi to South Indians. And it
Wow.
had a fair bit of success. And in some sense, so Hindi became, in some sense, some kind of, common link language. But many people were uncomfortable with, the language of one group of Indians becoming the language, of all the other Indians in a way. And I think the language itself is beautiful, it's wonderful, and all of that. But the way the government went about trying to implement it as the language, I think that ruffled a lot of feathers. That troubled a lot of people. If it had been allowed to grow organically, it would have happened. And in some way, it has happened. See, from Kanyakumari to, right up north, it is Hindi movies that are shown and watched and throughout the country, while
Yeah.
other language films are only shown largely in their own, regions. So it has
True.
happened organically. Nobody has resisted it. But because of the force, the imposition factor behind it, there has been a lot of politics around it. There has been a lot of anger about it. There has been a lot of bad blood between Hindi speakers and the rest of the country, which perhaps could have been avoided. And I think that is the problem, really.
I completely agree to this. And some people believe that Hindi, although existed as an informal language pre-independence or way back also, but after independence we get the formal structure of Hindi. Is that true? Like defining the final grammar, and this is how we are going to put it. Is that true?
I mean, see, what has happened, I think this exercise started even before independence, because the informal language, what, many people call Hindustani, mixed both Persian origin and Sanskrit origin words in equal measure. Many people felt that no, Hindi should have more words of Sanskrit origin, and they began consciously moving that language towards, that kind of vocabulary, where they started inserting more Sanskrit origin words into the language. And in that sense, the language changed to some
Got it.
extent, especially the written language. But in the
Right.
spoken language, I don't think it has changed as much as, they would have perhaps wanted it to. For instance, not too many people use the word pustak, for a book.
True,
People use kitab,
true.
right?
It's still kitab.
Yeah. So nobody uses netra for your eyes. People use
Uh,
aankhein,
uh, uh.
aankhein. So
They
many
in the
words like
makan.
that, they just stay. They've just stayed and nobody bothers about them. And now, unless you want to deliberately kind of change these words, I think people are quite comfortable with the way things are and they're happy using the old words.
In fact, now another drastic change is happening because on one side where people are trying to bring in or replace those Persian influenced words with traditional Sanskrit words or Sanskrit influenced words, there is another group of people which is bringing in English into Hindi, and English, as informally it's called, is also getting quite popular. So Hindi and English and Hindi of the old time when uh, there was, I think, what we officially know as Urdu is more closer to the Hindi that we developed pre-partition, if I'm not wrong. And now
Hmm.
we are changing Persian words to more Sanskrit words, and whereas one group of people is working on another languages, English, and even beyond that, when we move to mobile phones, we don't even think of a language. Whatever is coming to our mind, we just remove all the vowels, we condense it to whatever short form. God knows what those acronyms are. I mean, I have to reduce my age by at least 30 years to even understand those.
Uh, and
So,
that's how it is. See, languages are what we use for communication, right?
yeah,
And depending on what our needs are, we will, what can I say, mold the language, we will twist it to suit our needs. And the mobile phone is an excellent example of that. We need to
yeah,
use the mobile phone to communicate. Of course, we can call up people and speak to them, but sometimes we can't. We have to communicate, in the written form. And when you have to communicate in the written form, that's when actually all the experiments with language begin. Hinglish, short forms, leaving out the vowels, vagara, vagara, vagara. All the experiments start because of our needs, and it's unstoppable. This is how it will be. You have to accept it. You cannot say that this is wrong or this is not grammatical or this is so your spellings are so bad. The language adapts to accommodate all the changes, all the demands we make of it. And that's how it's always been.
good that you mentioned that because this brings me to one important aspect of your book, which is the last part of your book, which talks about scripts. Now, we have got many students also listening to our session. Uh, there is something called language, there's something called script. Script is what you write, language is what you speak, right? You have mentioned Brahmi, which many people believe is mother of most of the scripts that we have in this region, South Asia, from here all the way till Japan. Kanji script is also influenced by this. The scripts in Vietnam, Laos are also inspired by Brahmi. So, and people believe that the first branch out from Brahmi was the old Kannada. Now, if from this script, the oldest branch gets into South India, and yet people in South India believe that we don't have to do anything with Sanskrit, although it is just their belief. Your book very well talks about it, that it you cannot simply compartmentalize South Indian languages and North Indian languages. There is a crossover at many places. And yet people are not ready to believe, but they still accept that Brahmi script did come in, the language did not. So do you want to highlight this, the script aspect of a language?
See, we have to, like you rightly did, you distinguish languages and you distinguish scripts, right? The connection between language and script is not as close as we think it is, right? Like you said, script is a way of writing a language. So you can have multiple scripts for multiple languages. You can have the same script for multiple languages as well. And the cell phone is a good example. I mean, we type many Indian languages in the English or the Roman script, and we do it well. People understand it, right? So Brahmi is the old Indian script. Its origins are unclear. There is one story that it was probably invented in the time of Chandragupta Maurya as the Mauryan Empire expanded. He needed to send out more and more instructions in the written form, not only in the spoken form. and so he had a script developed. That is one theory. The other theory says no, this is the Brahmi script was probably developed in Tamil Nadu. There are potsherds with the Brahmi script, which are even older than some, 100, 200 years older than Chandragupta Maurya's time. So the final resolution of this controversy has not yet happened. But yeah, the Brahmi script is the original Indian script. It is the basis for almost all the scripts of the Indo-Aryan languages and the Dravidian languages. It has traveled as far as the Philippines and even influenced the Japanese script, apart from the Sinhalese script, the Vietnamese script, etc., etc. It is the original Indian export. Far before Indian software or anything went abroad, the script went abroad, right? And it went to many places all over Southeast Asia. It's a very interesting script. If you read it, you can, when you try to understand how Brahmi is written, you can trace how Brahmi has developed to become, say, the Tamil script or the Hindi script or the Bengali script. There is a direct line tracing. You can very easily sit down and trace it. How the script developed into the multiple Indian scripts. So it's a very what can I say? It's a very rich script. Many of Ashoka's edicts were in that script. Many Guptan, the Gupta Empire writings were in that script. It was used very extensively, and over time it changed into other scripts. It enabled the development of many other scripts. It's a wonderful Indian invention, original Indian
Right.
invention.
In fact, so as far as the script is concerned, I had seen this in the National Museum in Delhi. In National Museum, they have one area where they have put all the panels where they have shown each letter of different language and how that language started from Brahmi or something. It has to do something with Brahmi. So there is a whole corridor which is filled with these panels from different letters that shown in different languages, how the letter transformed and how it reads its present form, which is quite interesting. And students and teachers who are interested in understanding script more, they should visit that place in the National Museum. Scripts, no doubt, are interesting, and when people start writing different languages and different scripts, we are writing English using Roman script, Punjabi using Gurmukhi script, but Punjabi was not always written using Gurmukhi script. So we were having this one session with a very learned person from Lahore, and he shared a very interesting anecdote. Now, in Pakistan, Punjabi is written in the Urdu script. It's a very minor modification of Urdu script, actually script that we have in which Punjabi is written. Whereas in Punjab, it is written in the Gurmukhi script, the India side Punjab, and you, in the Punjabi chapter of your book. And by the way, this is something that I would want to tell all my audience, all our listeners also. This book is quite interesting because the way Karthik has organized this book, he talks about a language, he talks about the history of the language. There are, interesting stories, anecdotes, snippets, and towards the end, he is giving all the scripts. For example, in this case, in case of Punjabi, he has given both the scripts which are used in Punjabi, which is Shahamukhi and Gurmukhi. So both scripts are mentioned, as well as in some cases we are also using Devanagari. That also he has mentioned over here. What happened to Punjabi language after 1947? How is Punjabi uniting the two nations? And then there is a timeline. How did Punjabi start? How did Punjabi evolve? Not just Punjabi, for all languages, he has followed this format, and which is very good for us in the classroom also, and when we are trying to understand the language also. Because to be very honest, this is something that has bothered me for a very long time. I have been to so many schools. I work with more than 200 schools across India, and one thing that most common I found is when I interact with students, grade 6, 7, 8, and I ask them which is the most difficult subject, they always mention language, and to my uh, surprise, they always mention their mother tongue. So in Andhra Pradesh, children said we are not able to learn Telugu. It's the toughest subject. In Punjab, they said toughest subject is Punjabi. In Uttar Pradesh, Ghaziabad, Noida, they have told me the toughest subject is Hindi. And I was quite surprised that how come children are having trouble in their own mother tongue. And I believe that you have already answered that the because the politics that is happening over the language and the way we are trying to position the language, way we are trying to marry a script to a language, although it is the case, but still the way we put it politically and in our education system is something that uh, I think we lost our connection for a second in between.
I can hear you now. I
Uh,
think you're good.
I think I'm back. Yeah, okay. Great. So that's what I'm saying. So this is this one session that I was having with a very learned person from Lahore who happens to run one of the biggest museums of Pakistan, private museums of Pakistan, the Fakir Khana Museum. So Fakir Sahab, इनकी जो family है, he comes from a very learned family, and they were the chief executives of Maharaja Ranjit Singh of Punjab of Lahore. And there was a time he told us the story. So there was a time when Maharaja Ranjit Singh was approached by Akali Phula Singh, the Jathedar or the head of Amritsar. And Akali Phula Singh is a very influential person. I mean, so influential that there was a time when he punished Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So a general punishing his own king, and that being accepted. Although at request of people, that punishment was changed from he was punished lashes, 100 lashes. He was to be served with 100 lashes. A general telling his own king, Kode Maro isko. And was accepted because he was the Jathedar of Golden Temple. Cannot refuse him. But then it was reduced to just do the cleaning of the Gurudwara. So one day, Akali Phula Singh reached out to Maharaja Ranjit Singh and said that now it is our kingdom, our rule, and Punjab is now all safe. Sikh Raj hai. So why don't we remove this Persian script and bring in our own Gurmukhi script which the fifth Guru has developed? You have also mentioned in your book. तो महाराजा रणजीत सिंह said, okay, ठीक है, फकीर साहब बैठे हुए थे वहां पे, वो चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव, एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर एंड हेल्थ मिनिस्टर ऑल्सो. तो रणजीत सिंह said that why don't you talk to शाहजी, उनको शाहजी बुलाते थे, या शाहजी से पूछ लो. So what Shahji did, Shahji said, okay, fine, if you want to change the script from Persian to Gurmukhi, I have no problem. I am writing a sentence in Gurmukhi. If you can read it, let me know, and then we'll change it. Said, okay, fine. So he wrote a very long message in Gurmukhi. Now, interestingly, back in those days, Gurmukhi was written, the entire sentence was written as one single word. So when we write those letters, we put a line, just like in Hindi, we put a line on top of all the letters. And these words were combined. There was no space between two words, which means you can read a letter with the previous word or with the next word. There was always an ambiguity or a confusion. In fact, the older versions of the Guru Granth Sahib are also written like that. And later, people realized that it is not working out, so they started putting spaces in between words, and that's how we were able to identify words properly. So when this gentleman tried to read that Punjabi statement, which was written in Gurmukhi, and he could not figure out that which letter goes with which word because it would change the
Hmm.
meaning and it is valid in both ways. He was not able to read it properly, and then the same message was written in Persian script. It was given to Akali Kula Singh ji, and Akali ji read it comfortably. Then he said कि ठीक है जी मान गए, आप जो बोलोगे वही करेंगे. So not evolved
This
इसको
was
एक
common
technical.
across all the Indian languages. All the
It's
old Indian, whether it's Tamil or Malayalam,
हाँ,
it was written continuously without breaks,
without
between
break.
words.
So that
Because
is
actually
yeah,
the palm leaves or the scrolls, they were
yeah,
small, so you were trying to
right,
pack in maximum information in that small
right,
space. So
right,
you had to be trained to read it also.
right. I remember long back, my daughter walks into my room and she said, "Papa, do you know how come how the letters are created?" I said, "Okay, how?" She said, "Earlier they used to write on leaves. So if a leaf can easily get damaged, they will not put long straight lines. They would put soft circular lines. So
Yeah.
where they have softer, they have circular script. Where they have leaves, where you can put straight line and it won't scratch the leaf. You have straight letters, and that made me think that yes, scripts were not developed randomly, and I believe that
Hmm.
same true for languages also. They were not just out of
Absolutely.
the blue. Someone thought this particular symbol will be language and from today onward. Maybe there was a lot of science or logic behind it, and maybe we can have a separate session specifically for scripts, how
Hmm.
they are. And while we are doing this discussion, we are heading towards the end of our session now, maybe a couple of minutes more. All those who are watching, please feel free to ask any questions if you have. We are on YouTube, we are on Facebook. Just type in your question and we can see what you're asking. We'll try to answer your question. Getting back to my discussion, Karthik, have you got chance to ever chance to uh, or ever came across the whistling languages or the singing languages? We have
Yeah,
one
yeah,
in
and I've
Meghalaya.
heard of that. I have heard of
Yeah,
these singing languages in which are developed in islands. Even in parts
yeah.
of Karnataka, there are these shouting languages.
Oh, okay,
So they kind of shout, and then there is a way of understanding how far people are, and there is a way of communicating across distances.
okay,
So yeah, there are all these kinds of languages. In India, the Anglo Indians they developed something called the P language, right? So they
oh,
would put
okay,
the letter P before every vowel,
okay.
and many Anglo Indians knew that P language, and they were taught it from childhood, and it was their secret language. And
Interesting.
there are many other secret languages used by thieves and pickpockets in the olden times,
Hmm.
languages used by specific business communities,
Okay.
to mask their business secrets, to keep their business secrets. So these are all interesting things that take place in the world of languages. All kinds of
You,
inventions, all kinds of interesting things.
yeah, you might be surprised when I tell you that I come from a community which is named because of of something to do with language. So my
Hmm.
community is called Kuka. Now,
Hmm.
Kuka,
Hmm. Hmm.
although in South India means something different, but in Punjab, Kuka is one community which is known for its freedom struggle, and we are called Kuka because uh, Kukas तो कूक के कीर्तन मतलब चिल्ला के हम कीर्तन करते थे. So we would go to
Hmm.
villages and we would shout top of our lungs while doing kirtan, reciting the name of God, get people together and then tell them that we need to fight against the British, and that's how the freedom movement started,
Hmm.
the Kuka
Hmm.
movement started. But since we were singing hymns on top of our lungs, people would say, "ये कूकने आ गए हैं." तो वहां से नाम
Hmm.
ही कूका पड़ा. My community, I am a Kuka, so Kukas are known because of our style, the way we
Hmm.
dealt with our language. So जो shouting, singing की हम बात कर रहे थे, हमारा तो नाम ही है चीखना.
No, and the Kukas actually did something that they are not given, I think, enough credit for. They actually were the first to use this idea of non-cooperation with the British. In the
Anywhere in the
1870s,
world,
they
the
did not
world
do it.
against, yeah,
Yeah,
I
they did
know.
not use
And
British things.
sir, even today, those who are proper, now we are popularly known as Namdhari. Even today, Namdharis follow the same tradition. We don't wear pant shirt, we wear kurta pajama because pant shirt was something introduced by the British. We wear
Right.
round turban, we don't wear pointed turban because pointed turban was something done by Maharaja Patiala, British ally, and who went against Maharaja Ranjit Singh and all the Kukas and all.
Hmm.
Even
Hmm.
today, there are Kukas who would not drink tea because tea was introduced by the British. Kukas do not,
Hmm.
in some parts, Kukas do not drink tap water because taps and pipelines were introduced by the British. We had wells, we had ponds, we had rivers, and even today there are Orthodox people who still follow the same tradition and they drink water from wells. So,
Right.
Punjab, everywhere we have homes where they have wells inside their home. They're using
Hmm.
modern
Hmm.
amenities.
Hmm.
Everything that is made in India, they use.
That's
Although
very
Kukas
interesting.
are living in England also these days. But yeah, so, okay, one last point, and this is one concern that uh, almost all school teachers, parents, and students have. Children are uh, running away from the habit of writing. They are not able to write much. You also have kids. I believe you also have experienced this. They are no longer in the habit of writing. Now, I have been thinking about this whether it is a genuine concern or not. My view here is that as we are moving more towards these devices, we are getting more habitual of typing everything, and writing has reduced to probably old government banks and some schools where they still have to write circular by hand or check copies or
Hmm.
something like that. Other than that, whatever we do, even the most the biggest dealing that happens with text is what authors and publishers do. And everything goes on computer now. We hardly pick up our pen. So how important do you think writing is? And if this goes away, will the script and language also die?
No, the script and language won't die. The
Hmm.
script and language will remain in the new digital form. But yeah, I mean, see, when we begin using more and more of technology, there are intended consequences and there are unintended consequences. And what you're talking about is an unintended consequence. Because the device, because of computers, because of mobile phones, we have stopped
Yeah.
writing. We now type, or we type,
Yes.
on the phone like this. So we have to kind of figure out a way where we can keep both alive. How we do it actually is left to us. How we do it is left to people who have to think about this matter. Yes, writing is important. Writing properly by hand is important, but at the same time, shunning technology is not a good idea. So we have to
Hmm.
find a middle path that unites both these needs of ours. And I think I'm very hopeful that we will find it.
I I
Because among
completely
other
accept.
things, what
Mhm.
interests me is that many young people are interested in calligraphy. You know,
Yes.
uh, there are calligraphy courses and so on and so forth, and many young people are interested in that. And what could explain that? Obviously, people are still interested in writing. People are still interested in beautiful writing.
Uh, do you think we should promote handwritten content more in schools, or should we start moving towards digital slowly now? Your
So
personal
I
view.
would suggest that at in the younger ages we should perhaps definitely promote more handwritten. Once they're about 15 or 16, I think it's not a bad idea to get them used to technology, because in their work environment, in college environments, they're going to use technology. Handwritten is perhaps not going to be that much. So yeah, but in the younger, when the child is younger, I would suggest writing would be a good idea.
Uh, okay, I think we have had a very interesting discussion today, and I'm sure all those who have joined us in the live session and now this video will be available on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. People will watch it and they'll have more points, more things that will come to their mind. They might want to discuss those. I welcome everyone to type in their feedback, their comments, their questions into the comment section, and we'll keep a watch. We'll try to answer whatever queries are possible. We will not leave Karthik so easily. Whenever you ask me, I'm giving him a buzz and I'm gonna ask him, okay, Karthik, here's a new question for you. What do you have to say? Uh, Having said that, I would strongly urge once again to please read this book and mind it. I am not trying to just promote a book. I am trying to promote some genuine content which should reach everybody, because the way this book has been written, it's amazing. I think it has been 3 or 4 months when Karthik posted online that this book is coming out, and he did not tell much about it when he first posted it on social media. So I saw it and I went on Amazon. It was nowhere to be found. A few days later, I found out, okay, they have placed it on Amazon and they said, okay, you can pre-book it. It will be delivered somewhere in March or April, something like that. The month's time that they had given. And then I found it in the book fair, New Delhi book fair, and I picked up a couple of copies. I said, okay, I'm gonna place one in my office, one at my home, and I immediately asked my kids to read this book. And whenever we read a book, Karthik, here's something that you might not know. We do a rating. I'm not gonna show you exact rating right now. We have forms. We rate every book. We write our comments. So every book has is filled with such forms, and multiple people rate a book. By far, your book has got very high rating within all the books that my team has read. My
Wonderful.
own
That's
kids,
so
my
nice to know.
staff, and it's not only because of the way it has written, it's because the value it brings to the audience, to the reader. So I strongly urge everyone to please read this book, because I'm sure you will get to learn a lot from it. Uh, Karthik, thanks a lot for joining and spending such beautiful time with us. Anything that you wish to say at the end?
So my only, what can I say, message to everyone, especially to young people, is uh, show a show a above average interest in your languages. Your mother tongue, the languages spoken around you. Be curious about them. Try to learn them a little bit. Try to understand them a little bit. Languages are precious. Languages are very, very precious, and it's only when you exhibit curiosity by and learn them that this precious treasure that we have can be kept alive, for future generations. That's my only request to all young people.
Brilliant. Thank you. There is a song also by Gurdas Man where he says, "हर बोली सिखो सिखनी ही चाहिए, पर पक्की वेख की कच्ची नहीं चाहिए." That when you
Hmm.
find a better language, it does not mean that you have to leave a weaker language or a language that you feel is not up to the mark, because every language has its own beauty, its own important things, and you cannot just reject or discard a language,
Absolutely.
because language is what defines you. So once
Absolutely.
again, Karthik, thanks a lot for being with us. It has been wonderful hour that we spent with you, and we hope that we will continue this discussion not just online. We would invite you to a few of the schools that we are associated with, and let's sit and let's talk. Let us talk with the children and teachers in person. Hopefully, very
Wonderful.
soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful talking to you. I really enjoyed it. See you soon.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thank you.
Bye.